Hi guys, this is Laurence Shahlaei. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I get sent an awful lot of questions on Facebook and Twitter regularly, and it's very difficult to answer them all. So I've decided to set up this video and answer as many of your questions as possible. If you like the video, feel free to leave questions at the end of it, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. First question, I always get asked this: how often should you max out on a certain lift? My answer is always not very often. You know, training has to be exactly that. It's your time to train and peak for a certain competition or an event that you're training for. The maximum amount of times I would probably max out in a year myself would probably be about 4 or 5. But I guess for up and coming kind of athletes or beginners, you could look at going as much as every 6 weeks would be the absolute maximum. If you try and max every single week, you'll tax your central nervous system and you'll end up going backwards. So it's always important to kind of build up a training routine. So if I take my training for example, we'll take the deadlift. Week 1 would be very, very light. I'd probably be starting around, okay, it's not like, you know, it's light for me, you've got to remember your percentages, but week 1 I'd probably work up to 280 to 300 kilos for sets of 3s. It's way below my personal best and it's a comfortable weight. Then I'd often kind of end up doing some speed work afterwards, and then each week would progress, the weight would go up, the speed work would get faster and heavier each week, and then you're kind of aiming to be at your best at a certain time. So before Britain's Strongest Man this year, the most I'd actually pulled in the gym was 380 kilos, although it was a nice quick rep and my speed work with the lighter weights was going very, very fast. And I know top guys like Andy Bolton, Terry Hollands, all the big deadlifters in this country use a lot of speed work in their training. So you're not putting that maximum weight on the bar all the time, but you're still trying to develop as many muscle fibers and as much power as you can. So back to the simpleness of it, you know, no more than every 6 or 8 weeks. Every time you go for the max, I would then look at kind of, I may be having a rest week or starting again from a low weight and building back up. No one can just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger week in week. You might do it for a few weeks, but you will end up going backwards. So always try and have that goal, that competition or that date that's set in mind to go for your PB, and then remember it's time to back off. Footwear. Another important aspect of any kind of particularly strongman competitions is the footwear that we wear for different events. I'm always getting asked, you know, what's best for certain events. So I'll go through what I use for the different events. First, let's start with the deadlift because it's such a big staple event. For me, when I deadlift, I go barefoot or in socks, basically. You want to be down as low as you can to the ground to shorten the range of motion, and that's why I do that. In powerlifting competitions, you can wear the little pimp soles with a very, very thin sole, so you're, again, as low as possible, or like the ballet type shoes. But for deadlifting, you know, for me, personally, it's just much more comfortable. In the socks, I get a nice feel on the floor, and it puts me in the right position to pull. Second thing to look at is squatting and overhead lifting. I use the same shoes for both. So it's Olympic lifting shoes that have got the nice thick heel at the end of them. It just keeps my heels on the floor, so when I go down into that deep squat position I can really drive through the floor. And same with the overhead pressing. The Olympic shoes keep me balanced. When the weight's on my chest with a log or an axle, I'm then ready to drive hard through the floor, feel nice and secure, and hopefully the weight goes up overhead. Then you've got the awkward strongman events. I kind of use some good solid walking shoes for most events, but particularly all the moving events, anything like the yoke or Farmers Walk or the loading events. The walking shoes kind of support me a little bit better than your average trainers. Trainers tend to be a bit soft, and with the weight of a strongman, if you're going over 20 stone, you know, you're putting a lot of weight through the floor and then carrying these weights as well. So a good solid walking shoe. And then truck pulling, we tend to use rock climbing boots. It gives you as much friction against the floor as possible when you're driving. You don't want your feet slipping all over the place, so you tend to use the rock climbing boots to get that friction, and then you can apply as much force as possible into the ground with every push. What other events can I think of with shoes? I think that's probably about it for now. There might be other guys that use different things, but that's the kind of main standard things that I look at I would say the most important ones for me are the walking shoes, because they just support my feet. I get good grip on all the events, and they're comfortable for me, which, you know, if your feet aren't comfortable, then you're not going to perform at your best. Okay, next question, how often should you train? This is another big question you get asked all the time, and the honest answer is it varies. It certainly varies depending on what your goals are, and obviously everyone has a certain amount of time that they can commit to training. For me personally, I'll take myself as an example first. I train 4 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. For strength and also particularly for strongman training, you need to cover so many different areas. You need to be strong and powerful, but you still need to have good fitness and conditioning, and most competitions incorporate a lot of different elements. If I was training just for powerlifting or a very, very heavy competition like something like the Arnold Classic, I might cut my training days down to 3 days a week, because just training for strength, basically you want to get into the gym, work as hard as possible with you're lifting your big weights, and then it's all about rest and recovery, and eating basically. You know, you're trying to get big and strong. So if it's just for power, 3 days a week is great. You know, you can have your push day, your pull day, your leg day, and then it's just resting in between, trying to get as much good nutrition in you and sleep, to be honest, you know, when it's just for power. When you need that conditioning and fitness, you might want to go up a little bit more. And when you kind of start looking at endurance sports, you're almost trying to train 5 or 6 times a week. I know some guys end up splitting their training days so that they're training 5 or 6 days a week and doing 2 sessions a day. But, you know, you're looking at elite level athletes doing that, and also only a certain few people can get away with training that often. I tried to do it myself when I was younger. I looked at training 11 times a week. So you'd be training in the morning, doing your weights and your strongman events, etc. And then and then in the evening I'd be doing like cardio, conditioning. But I actually found it was way too much training, and I burnt out. When I cut down to 4 days a week, I saw much bigger results in my training. I got stronger faster, and you know, I know guys, particularly people that have been training for a long time, they tend to be able to train less then, because you have that muscle memory. You tend to be able to get back to your best very, very quickly. I think for strongman, if you can give 3 days a week, that's good enough. 4 days is, I would say, is perfect. I know most top strongmen train about 4 days a week. There is exceptions, obviously, but I know so many of the top guys that train 4 days a week. You're getting, you know, the training always varies depending on what the goals are, as competitions always change. But if I give you a quick rundown of my training for World's Strongest Man this year and Britain's Strongest Man, Monday would have been back day, getting my deadlifts, assistance for back work, and then some conditioning. Tuesday was a pressing day. I tend to do like push pressing to start with, and then assistant work for the shoulders and triceps. Wednesday was a rest day. Thursday's always been a leg day for me, trying to do squats, get my legs strong. Lots of assistant work for the legs. Maybe a strongman event such as yoke or some kind of truck pulling. And then Friday I tend to do a lot more strongman events. It would be a pressing day to start with a certain strongman implement, and then maybe more moving strongman events such as out of the stones or loading, and events that get you blowing. So that's me personally, but like I said, if it's strength you're focusing on, you can train less. If it's more endurance based, you might want to train a bit more. But as long as you're working hard in the gym, the amount of time you go each week doesn't matter. The most important thing is you're consistent over a long period of time. So if you can only devote 2 days training a week, if work's really tough and that's all you can do, that's fine, but you have to make sure you stick to it. It's better to do that over a long period of time than train 5 or 6 days a week for a few weeks and then stop. Okay, Yoke and Farmers Walk are obviously 2 of my favourite events. I was quite lucky to just pick them up naturally and be pretty good at them. But over the years I've kind of developed ways to get them better and kind of almost get the best out of myself and others that I've trained to be really quick and solid on these events. what's the key components of the yoke and Farmers Walk? They're very simple events, or very similar events, should I say, except for one is holding it in your grip. So obviously a strong grip is very, very important for the Farmers Walk. If I quickly try and demonstrate with my hands how to hold the Farmers. Imagine my finger is the bar. I try to kind of rest it just behind where the calluses are on the hand. And I wrap my fingers around as far as I can, twisting the arm and then locking my thumb into my first two fingers. And then when the weight pulls, your hand will kind of straighten out, but the bar is still stuck in there between the calluses. And it's a much, much stronger position than holding it in the fingers. You see some guys grab the bar in their fingers like this, and as soon as they lift it, it gets a bit heavy and it'll start pulling the fingers open. So try to get the bar in the palm, the bar in the palm of your hand, wrap the fingers right round, lock down with the thumb, and then as you lift, it'll bite into your hand. It's not very comfortable, but it's a much stronger position to hold the bar in to start with. Once the grip's sorted for Farmers Walk, the movement, what you've got to try and do for both events, yoke and Farmers Walk, is imagine that there's a line going down the course, just like a painted white line if you like, and you want to try and keep your feet just either side of that line. You don't want to see big wide stance. You see some guys with the Farmers and the yoke, they take a big wide stance because it's heavy to lift the weight, but then as soon as they move they rock side to side. You want to avoid any rocking movement, as much rocking movement as possible, because your upper body wants to be as still as possible, and then it's just all about fast feet moving as quick as possible. The other thing I'd say for the yoke is how you balance it on the back of your shoulders. You see some guys have it very, very high, right up onto the top of their neck almost, and you can get like a nasty mark at the back of the neck. I try to have the bar a little bit lower, and I try and raise my shoulders up as high as I can, so I create a much greater area, a surface area for the bar to rest on, and that then makes the yoke much more stable when you're moving. Yoke and Farmers, both short, fast feet, okay? As you get stronger, you might be able to take longer strides, but the feet need to stay close to each other. If your feet go apart, you tend to get that rocking movement again. So once you've got the yoke set up on your back properly, the grip sorted on the Farmers, how should you be training it each week? I see way too many guys in training logs and on Facebook and telling me that they're doing such and such yoke for 3 meters or something like that. That's pointless, because in a strongman competition you have to go 20, 30, sometimes 40 or 50 meters with those type of events. So you should make sure your training is to mimic that. And if you can't lift a 400 kilo yoke, don't worry about that for now. You've got to get the endurance in the legs better, and that endurance will get your power stronger for when it is heavier. I always train way under the weight that I need to for competition. Obviously I'm in a good position that I know I'm strong enough to lift that weight now, so it's all about developing the speed. So if I take yoke for an example, at Europe's Strongest Man I had the yoke, and it was 420 kilos. The heaviest I went to in training was 365 kilos, but for 40 meter runs as fast as possible. And in fact, in week one, I was probably only using about 280 or 300 kilos for 3 runs, working on speed. I record my time every time just to make sure I'm trying to be faster and faster, because if you just say to yourself, right, I'm going to do 3 runs and just plod through it, you're not trying to be quicker, and then you're not pushing yourself to get better. So a good tip is to always record your times, because then you're setting yourself a goal to beat. Same with the Farmers Walk. It was 80 meter runs I was training, so it was 40 meters one way, 40 meters back, practicing a turn, always working on the little things like the turn. If you have a yoke with the turn, practice getting good at the turn, because you don't actually turn the yoke, but you drop it, turn your body, pick it up again and go. And if you can save time on those aspects, it can definitely help in competition. I would throw in the occasional heavy session just to get used to weight. Sometimes on the yoke I might just do pickups, so I'll go really, really heavy, just working on the pickup just to get used to that weight. But most of my training is based on moving the weight quickly. I tend to try and separate gym training and event training. Gym training is where I get strong, event training is more technical, and I'm trying to just get good at the events rather than punish my body by lifting ridiculously heavy weights week in, week out. I hope that helped. We'll definitely answer some more questions soon. Just come back, keep looking at the page, keep looking at the Facebook page, and if you have any questions, please feel free to send them through. Thanks.